There we go. I pressed the wrong button. Okay, hello. How are we all doing? How are the levels sounding? I'm trying to get the balances right. I want it to be... I noticed in the last stream,
hello.
my voice was a little bit on the lower
How are
side.
the levels sounding?
So I'm trying to get the balances right. The stream is on and somewhere. I can hear that. That is
my voice was a
on
little bit
Twitch.
on the lower
Let's just
side.
mute that and close that. Oof. Cool. Should be good to go. My music seems to be gone. Or it's just a quiet track. Yeah, it is. Hello. We can switch to the camera. Okay, my hair is a mess today. Do that. That looks a lot better. How's it going, everybody? So, if you were watching the stream on Saturday night, I think it was, Godot 4.3 broke my shader. I thought it was really funny at first, but I realized that as a part of the Godot FPS Pro asset pack, that shader is inside there, and when Godot 4.3 comes out and people try to upgrade it, that's a problem. So I know how to fix it, and I'm going to do it. We're going to do it on stream, and then we're going to jump over to do some other stuff. I've got a couple of Discord requests for some fixes. So that is the plan tonight. Let's go to the desktop. Where's the camera? There it is. Noise. Okay, awesome. Let's minimize that. Okay, so I made a new Godot FPS controller copy. I've got so many versions. So we can just jump into that. Let me just get settled. I need to go to the YouTube dashboard so I can get things going. I've got to edit the title and description, get a shareable link. No, give me that. Oh, I've got a thumbnail. I've got a custom thumbnail for this. Try and boost those CTRs. Thumbies. Live stream Monday. And I don't know why, but monetization is always off by default, so I've got to remember to turn that on. Monetization is on. Done. Yeah, but we won't insert any mid-rolls because I'm not like that. There ain't enough people in the stream to be throwing mid-rolls at you. Okay, awesome. And the restream chat looks like trash. I wonder if I can change that. Oh, I could just turn it off. Docs, custom browser docs, chat, restream. That doesn't change anything. Oh well, I'll do my best to read it, and if I miss it, it's because it's white on white. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got going on in this project. I'll click import. Import is the right button. Testing, we have got the old, we want the new template, and so this will just import and edit. I'm surprised that went through. It should... Oh, this is the wrong one. I clicked the wrong button. Quick to project list. I mean Godot 4.3, yeah? Let's try that again. Godot FPS Pro. I can't read. And then, yes, that's what I was expecting to see. Okay, we're going to import it, and I'll quickly show you guys what I'm dealing with in case you missed it on Saturday night. Okay, so we're going to get a bunch of errors. Basically, this shader, I should open up the breaking changes. There is a major shader change. This was announced about a month ago. I didn't pay any attention. I sort of read it, and I thought, maybe. But, where is it? Reverse Z. So reverse Z. Introducing reverse Z, aka I'm sorry for breaking your shader. After extensive discussions, they have decided to implement reverse Z depth buffering techniques in Godot 4.3. They think it's an exciting change. Godot 4.3 just crashed in the background as I'm trying to set up the preamble for this. We're going to be dealing with a lot of that tonight. I think Okay, let's get back to this. This is an exciting change as it brings a massive improvement to depth buffer precision at no performance or memory cost. I don't really understand what the improvement will be, but I guess time will tell. This technique is used everywhere in 3D games these days. In practical terms, it significantly reduces the chances of running into Z fighting and other depth buffer precision artifacts. NVIDIA has an excellent article on explaining the theory. Okay, so basically this is industry standard and we're trying to get up to parity with that. So I'm not going to really question it too much. This is where the developers want to go, and I think if they think it's the right decision, then it's the right decision, right? So they're writing this post to tell us, all the different reasons why it costs. Hey, Gyric's here. Gyric's here. Gyric is here. I remember you. We are certain that the vast majority of users will not run into compatibility breakage, although I did, lucky me, and you may need to tweak your custom spatial shaders that write to position in the vertex processor function, which I was doing, write to depth in fragment processor function, and reads from depth texture, because everything's reverse basically. And so this leads to a pretty funny error in my Godot FPS Pro asset pack, where the weapon is no longer visible, but it is visible in the sky, which is pretty darn funny. That's pretty hilarious, but obviously, as an asset pack, it's not really not good, but that happens. But obviously, this is because it's being written in reverse. So if we have a look at the shader, which I should be able to find, not in the world, but in the view model shader, we are going to have, there's a lot of information going on here, and the main issue is this position.z mix position 0.999. Now, as you imagine, this needs to be inverted for this to work. So the first thing that we went and tried on Saturday night was to change this to 0.999 and to change this to 0. I'll just change it to 999. And this will get it showing in front, but because now everything is drawn back to front, it's just back to normal, right? Like, so we're not doing anything to prevent Z buffering. The weapon is just going to clip straight through, which, it's a place to start. We've got it back into working order. Now we need to go through and work out what to do. Now, I did work out that if I put something like 0.2 here, this will somewhat alleviate the issue. But you can see, I'm pointing to my screen, like you guys can see where I'm pointing. You can see at the very close to the camera, it's clipping. So while this does work, I don't think it's a very serviceable solution. And so I started looking at the alternatives. Now, I think probably most people would know, if you've been trying to make an FPS game in Godot, that the traditional way that most people would do it would be with a sub viewport, which, it works, and I actually quite like using a sub viewport, but the issue is that the lighting does not come through, especially in Godot 4. So in Godot 3.5, that was basically, I think, the standard way to do it. But what happened in, I don't know, something changed in the rendering for Godot 4. I'm pretty sure there's an open issue. I don't know when it'll be fixed. But no lighting, no shadows will come through. So the lighting comes through, and shadows within that layer, if you're doing a sub viewport, will come through, but shadows from your world coming through onto the view model won't come through. So it's not a serviceable solution, especially if you're trying to make like a game with ambience where lighting is important. So if lighting's not that important, then that's fine, depending on your style. But I think for most FPS games, it's just not a good solution. So I went out and started to search for a different way to do this, because quite frankly, I think this just needs to be removed from this shader. It's not going to work. And I'm pretty sure if I do that, everything's just fine. It works as normal. There's no issues here. I'm going to experiment with maybe just writing my own shader rather than using someone else's. But the solution is actually to write to the depth buffer. And this was basically there's two, before Godot 4.3, there was two ways to do it. You could write to position and manipulate the projection matrix, or the position, I don't know the exact term. And the other way, I'll need to open up my reference, was to use the depth buffer in the fragment shader, which is what they're referencing here, right? It's to depth. I don't know if they've got like a thing here, depth 0 equals 0, so that needs to change to 1, obviously, for things to work. Give me a moment. I'm gonna grab a reference text because I don't exactly remember off the top of my head. I don't want to get it wrong. So GitHub testing pro old player controller scripts view model shader.ga. I'll just open this up, and so basically what I have worked out. So what you would do in Godot 4.2. The other way, so I've got a video using this method. The other thing that you can do is you can go depth equals frag chord .z, and it would be something like multiplied by 0.7, right? And that would work in terms of like Godot 4.2, right? But obviously in Godot 4.3, things have changed. So I'll just run this as with the standard, and obviously everything goes right through. In fact, it's even worse. So what I found you could do is actually just change this number to 2.5, right? Because it's reversed again. So rather than reducing the number, we make I'm gonna make like a proper YouTube video on this when Godot 4.3 launches, right? For sure, Merlin Perlin. Because I've got another video, and it's one of the more popular ones on my channel, where I teach people how to make this shader, and it's like totally in the trash now. So that was the two things. Like, I literally sell an asset where I utilize this shader, and I've also got a video which is one of like the ones that get the most views. And I know as soon as 4.3 drops, I'm just gonna get like a million messages on that. So I need to have something ready in the barrel, ready to go. So we just change it depth equals frag chord .z 2.5, and I'm pretty sure that works. I'm going to test it out now. Yeah, and as you can see, we've actually got a little bit of clipping in certain instances, right? A little bit. You can see it go through. I've got a shotgun here, which is a lot further out, and that clips through. So you're just going to have to experiment with the number. I actually don't know what that needs to be afloat, what the full solution is going to be. I'm not like a shader guy, so I'm not like, I don't know this stuff super well, and so that's pretty good. The shotgun's pretty much fixed now. Such a bad animation, and things aren't clipping at the front, so like that seems to be the number to use, and that's, I think, a serviceable solution. We still get shadows. Everything looks pretty good. We're not having any issues here. So to me, that's it. It's actually pretty simple. And I'll have to make a new video explaining that in detail. Basically, doing everything I did in my original video. I can pull that up. Videos. It wasn't that long ago, to be honest. Use a shader. Oh yeah, just playing an ad, bro. That's so annoying. Well, at least I get like a cent for that. So basically, this video, the best way to fix gun clipping Godot 4, use a shader. So yeah, I'll need to replace that, and I'll probably put a pin down, because in that, I basically, utilize the other one in here because of this video as well. Yeah, exactly. So that's the solution. It's really straightforward. You just change that number, but I'll do like a proper edited video where I set up everything again, because people will need the context. And then I don't know if I'll unlist that video, because realistically, I mean, maybe both is necessary. I don't know. We'll see. If I get too many people putting comments on it saying that it doesn't work, I'll probably unlist it because it just gets kind of annoying. But yeah, we'll make a new one. Okay, so that's that. That's the main thing I want to talk about with Godot 3. How easy was that? We just fixed the shader like that. And we can... What was on that? I think, no, we're good. Cool. So, let's open up regular Godot. I had requests in my Discord. So if you guys want to join the Discord, I should probably drop a link in. You can always ask me questions. I'm not always going to answer them. I'm not always going to be able to answer them either. But if you want, you can ask me questions. And if I think I can answer it, I'll do so. So let me just grab the Discord link. Yeah, I'll have to add the filter to I'll have to add I'll change the title, then keep it up. Yeah, that's still though, I've got FPS tutorials for Godot 3.5 and people still write on them oh, it doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, you just click my profile, bro. But yeah, anyway, it's not a big deal. Just one of those funny things. Dude, where's my stream manager for Twitch? It's not working. Oh well. Doesn't matter. Okay, where's the Discord? So, dude, I can't find anything. Okay, so in tutorial help, someone has asked me, they asked me about a rocket launcher, but that one I think is okay. They never came back to me on that. But someone did ask me, or Discord, asked about a better way to get the weapons. Okay, we've kind of covered that, but I haven't made a main video about it. I do have one in the chamber, but it's kind of just a stream highlight, so it's not that in depth. But they're also asking me about melee weapons in the FPS project. So following on from the tutorial that I made 9 months ago, if it's possible to make a melee weapon, a dedicated melee weapon. And I think theoretically yes, but I've never tried it. So I have to put my money where my mouth is. That's right. Yeah, I have to put my money where my mouth is and actually give it a go to see how easy it is, whether or not I need to change the code. So my goal is to not need to alter the code too much to do it, because it's supposed to be a really flexible template. So we'll get into the Godot 4 FPS controller. I believe that's the one I want to work on, and we'll give it a go. So I've got the sub viewport camera. Yeah, okay, so I was experimenting around with that. What does the world look like? I've got a big shadow above me. I think that can stay. I have no reason to want to move that. It's just a bit of fun. Yeah, why not? So the controller always had an FPS. It was a lot more like, say, Halo or COD, where you don't have a dedicated melee weapon. Actually, you might have a dedicated melee weapon in COD. I say Call of Duty all the time. I'm like, yeah, it's like Call of Duty. You know the last time I played Call of Duty was in 2007, Played the original Modern Warfare, and I haven't touched it since. But yeah, there is a melee strike on every single weapon, but there's no dedicated melee weapon. So I think that's what a lot of people are looking to do, which is fair enough. So we should see if we can make one. First, I need a model. I hope Kenny's got something for me. Kenny weapons. Let's have a look. Otherwise, I can just import something. No. They're all blasters, foam bullet, target. Should I just make a giant foam bullet that you whack people with? that. What about on Kenny's website? Kenny's a legend. I love using his stuff for videos. It's just so good. It's kenny.nl, right? Kind of a bit worried to spell his name wrong. I think that was correct. Cool. Alrighty. Alright, so let's see what he's got. 3D. Dude, he's just got so much stuff. If you ever prototyping, it's just the way to go. So that's the blaster kit that I've got. Is there anything else sci-fi looking that I can use that'll fit in? Where am I? Because if I want to add this to the main template, then I kind of want to keep it on theme, but there really isn't anything. I suppose I could flip one of these upside down and it would still look good. Yeah, we can go with that. I wonder if I've removed some of these because I don't recognize that. Maybe he's added to it since. I think he's added to it. I'm going to download it again. Cool. Alrighty. That didn't open. How annoying. Models. I guess we'll use GLTF. There is definitely more stuff. I'll have to clean up the project a bit, but I think we're gonna roll with this. Godot, GitHub repos, Godot 4.3 template, media, no example world, models, Kenny weapons, and I'll just skip anything that isn't in there already, so we still get some. 16 out of 28. Okay, yeah, we got some more. There was definitely a difference. I could tell that there was just more stuff. Okay, let's get amongst it and see if we can find something Blaster P. So I reckon like we flip this upside down and that'll probably look like some kind of strikeable, some weapon that we're striking with. That's probably what I'm gonna do. Oof, I'm trying to close ya. Yeah, I reckon that other one that I was looking at is the ticket, Blaster P. Hello, bro, traveling OS. How are you? Are you traveling? Okay. So this is going to be in the player controller, and we're going to bring it to the weapon manager here. This is where I've got all my weapons. It doesn't really matter where I put my weapons. It's just this is where I like to have them. I'll drag in Blaster P here. Where'd it go? Oh, that's right. I have a specific way I like to do this so it doesn't get like dropped in on the front. So I drag it just to the player, and that way it'll be at the root location, and then I can move it within the tree so that it just behaves a bit better. Ultimately, it could be anywhere, but I'm going to say here is where I want it. I'll make it local, and we're going to create a set of animations, which is always fun. We really just need, yeah, we don't need reload. We just need strike. We're going to have one strike, but we'll try to maintain consistency. So we'll like Blaster P activate. It's Blaster P2. Okay. So we'll call it Blaster P underscore activate. And obviously the starting location, it's going to be not visible. Key that in. And these animations are normally pretty quick, so I'm going to make it 0.1, and we'll have to change the snapping obviously we'll make it visible, and we need to raise it up. So you can split view here, right? View, 2 viewports. Please and thank you. And we'll put one of them in preview mode so that we can see the weapon, and the other one just out here in case we need to manipulate it ourselves. But for now, we know that we want it to be in view of the camera, so that's pretty easy. I like to just do the things like here. Like here, I can see it now, you know? We'll just rotate it this way. Move it out a little bit further. Across. Maybe we need to flip it. This is still going to look really weird. We'll roll with it. Turn on that so I can see what I'm doing. Maybe if I just drop it down a little bit, and it won't be as noticeable. I forgot to key the origin. How silly of me. It's okay. Okay, we key them in, and this is what it'll look like. That's perfectly fine, I think. In fact, we might make this a bit quicker. Maybe a bit too quick. Yeah, that's fine. It's like instantaneous. Like you wouldn't notice the difference. Okay. And then we need a strike. Animation. Type blaster. P. It's still going to be shoot. Oh, maybe I can make it strike. It doesn't really matter the name. Everything just got reset, didn't it? Lovely. Every time you save, we're still going to make this really quick. And the snapping, change the snapping every time it gets reset. Probably need to adjust the defaults. Okay, obviously we have our starting point, which is these two. Click that. Okay. What does a strike look like? There's probably some wind up. So we'll raise it up, we'll move it back, we'll rotate it. This way, like this. It is, yeah, I'm making a melee weapon because I've got a couple of requests on Discord, so if you want to like reach out to me, you can jump on the Discord, and if you ask me a question, sometimes I'll answer it, if I can, or if I think it'll make good content, I'll do it on stream. So yeah. Alrighty, because yeah, people always ask me, oh, can you make a melee weapon? And like with the template, and I've said, yeah, in theory. I've never done it. So we're going to try. Okay, so we've got some wind up. The strike is normally pretty quick. We want fast feedback. So we'll go across. Rotate this way this time. Keep it so that you can't see the ammo. Okay, and then there's always a little bit of follow through. This is how I like to do them. We'll go further on the Z, but we'll also need to go down. And a little bit more rotation, that's okay. We'll allow it. So that, and then we'll return to pose. I mean, you can use whatever you want, man. Like, it doesn't matter. Whoops. I'm going to use this because I just want it to be consistent, I guess. So it looks like a little bit of a hook. You won't see that it's a gun. So it looks more like a hammer. It's really quick. Make it a bit slower. Still, let's just drag this all the way out to the end. 0.2 seconds, is that too slow? I guess we'll find out. All right, good enough, I think. Okay, so let's have a look at what else I need. Obviously, we've got a deactivate, which is just activate in reverse. So I'm going to go to the activate blaster and we'll just duplicate this and we'll call it deactivate. Easy as that. And then we'll just like swap all the nodes around. Make it visible, please, so I can actually see it. Yeah, that's fine. What else is next? We need out of ammo melee. So the quirk I think here is that I am actually going to need to change the code because the quirk is, I'm pretty sure for the weapon resource, the animations are necessary. So like in theory, for a melee weapon, you just need to activate it, deactivate it, and strike. Most of the time, it doesn't have a reload. It might, but there needs to be like an optional thing. Like if it doesn't exist, just don't call that function kind of thing. So I might need to look into that. We'll start with this as a baseline. And I'll need to create a resource for it because that's what we do here. We make the resources. So for weapon models, weapons, nope. We want script, weapon state machine, weapon resources. And we'll create a new resource and it's just decided to be on the other screen. It's going to be a weapon resource. And we'll call it, we'll just call it melee. How do you spell melee? Single L. Melee weapon. Okay, so I had to put a double L again. So the pickup animation, blaster P to activate. I'm just copying it so I don't get it wrong. There's probably a better way to do that. Pickup animation is blaster P underscore strike. And I'm going to make it so you can't drop it because I haven't got one. And then it just wants the change animation, which is blaster P deactivate. So if I type rename, it's probably going to be easier to copy. So that's all I've got. We'll put the strike in the melee animation so that it plays no matter what button you press. Stats, well, it doesn't have ammo, so these are all going to be 0. I'm going to have to allow for something to work with that because as far as I'm aware, if there's no ammo, then it won't work. I'm going to say it can't be dropped. It's not really going to have spray or a projectile to load, and these can be empty. So that's fine. Incremental reload doesn't matter. So realistically, we just want to know the damage. We'll make it 1. Auto fire, no. Although if you do want it to just repeatedly strike, that's actually maybe not a bad thing. And so that would be the weapon resource setup. And I would just come to the elements here and add another weapon slot. Put this one on top. And then drag the melee weapon in. And there it is in game. It won't fire, but it will let you do a melee strike because that doesn't require ammo. But we want it to trigger when you hit the left mouse button, right? So we're going to have to change the code a little bit. There was a few things. I've forgotten all the things that I said I had to do. Alrighty. So now let's look at shoot. Shoot is where the problem is going to be. So it says if current weapon slot dot current ammo is not equal to 0, then to go through. Hey, how's it going? Shamhavi. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Hope you're having a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon. Either way. So we've got shoot, and what are we gonna do? We are going to need to. I don't want to put a check for like, oh, it's a melee weapon, but I'm just not sure what we're gonna need to do. Someone followed me. I don't know who, because I wasn't watching. Alil 1405. Thank you for the follow. So what are we going to do to solve this issue? Could we check to see if it doesn't have a reload animation? Just keep going. No, that's a bit too ambiguous. Might need to... I think I might need to add an extra field. Even though I don't really want to, it's going to be the easiest way to just put like a checkbox. It doesn't necessarily need to be for a melee weapon. It can just be for requires reload. So some weapons don't require reload, right? So that might be where I go with it. So I'll need to change the weapon resource. And we will probably need to put that in magazine, max ammo, all that kind of stuff. Delete these. Max ammo, magazine, max ammo, because those two fields, that's probably the best place for it. We'll go export, var, and requires reload. And it'll be a bool and will equal to true by default. Because I think we expect most people will want regular guns. So if they don't check that, then, so I'll just put a note here for the editor to say, if unchecked, shoot tip function will skip ammo check, right? Because that's what it's going to do. Oh, and I was also a little bit curious, like, if I hit reload, okay, it doesn't throw an error when I press the reload button. What's the other things? G, well, it can't be dropped, so that's fine. Okay, so I don't need to have an animation in the field in order for it to work, so you can leave animations blank, which is good. So let's just go back. I can't see the screen. Give me a moment. Let me just switch back to YouTube because I can't read the chat. When am I going to update the template? Well, I'm updating the template right now. So if you, and in fact, I pushed an update to the asset library the other day. So if you want that, I don't think I updated it on itch. I didn't update it on itch. I forgot. Sorry. But yeah. But I probably won't make a video on it because it's hard to get people to watch it when you're like 15 episodes deep. And it's kind of niche anyway. Okay, so we are going back to the weapon resource. I need stream manager. Okay, we got the stream. Pop out chat. So I'm just trying to build because I can't read the chat on OBS because the chat box is like white on white, so it's really hard to see. So I just want to pull out Twitch chat just in case anyone's chatting. Alrighty. Okay, so now we've got require reload. So now that we've got that, I'll just copy that and we will come to the melee weapon and we'll uncheck that. And all we need to do is in the weapon state machine for two things. So and we just need to put like an or here and or current weapon slot dot weapon dot requires reload. And I guess it's not or not. Is that the right syntax? It's crashed. Cannot call projectile. Oh, it's a projectile weapon. It thinks it's a projectile weapon, but it worked. That means okay. So I can fix that. Why does it think it's a projectile weapon? Is that on by default? Oh, it wants... Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. So that's the next thing I need to work on. Oh, I'm so dumb. Projectile to load is mandatory. You do need to have one. So the easiest way to get around this is you would just put a hit scan. So I've done this before in my melee video. I just made a hit scan weapon with a very short range, right? That works, but it's very like precise. You have to be aiming directly at the person. And I actually changed the melee hit. I don't know if I ever touched on it in a video, but I turned it into a big hitbox here. And so that gives us a lot more range when it comes to making a melee strike with any of our other weapons. It's very generous. And I think that's ultimately a good thing because you can't expect people to be like bang on. And like visually, the animation won't even look like that. So I changed it to, what is this, like a collision ray shape or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, so I got lost. What am I trying to do? I am trying to add a projectile. So I was going to show the example of, go back to melee weapon, of just loading up a hit scan, so load, and it's going to player controller, spawnable objects, projectiles to load, basic hit scan projectile, right? And it does need a range. We'll make it like 1 meter, and this should work, right? So now we can just strike continuously with the melee weapon. If we come over to these, it should register hits, right? So that's, you know, like if you just wanted something basic, that's like, you're good to go, really. But you'll notice that like if I strike here, it's not going to hit. It's also like a pretty short range. So like that's a hit, that's not a hit. That's a hit, that's not a hit. It's very precise. And I ultimately think that's probably a bad decision in terms of game design. But like that's a melee weapon in itself. But if we really wanted to get the most out of it, we are going to want to probably create a custom projectile. So it's not, it's going to be like a rigid body projectile, but the rigid body is going to be like a hitbox. I think that's probably how I'm going to play it. I'm going to like load a hitbox. I'm going to sort of like, much like I did for the shotgun, just override this and extend the projectile to load a hitbox. I mean, maybe I could just get away with it by making it a rigid body projectile. And does the rigid body projectile expect it to be? Yeah, it does expect it to be a rigid body. That's why it's called that, right? So that might not work. I think I'm gonna have to extend it. I'm gonna have to create a, you know, oh, crashed. This happens a lot when I'm streaming for some reason. Should be right. Okay. So I'm like streaming on Facebook now. I should check. I don't even know how that works. Live video. You're now acting as Chef Dev. Your video is updated. Oh, I don't even know. I don't know how Facebook works. I'm such a freaking noob. Oh yeah, it says I'm live. Yeah, here we are. There ain't nobody there though. Anyway, there ain't nobody there though. The audio's coming through. Okay, so we're gonna create a melee projectile. Oh, what are we going to call this? We'll just probably call it a melee projectile. Okay. So probably shotgun projectile. Scripts are a little bit all over the place. Because I'm pretty sure this is in... Oh yeah, because it's a script for the projectile, right? Shotgun projectile. Did the same thing here. Script, and it's going to inherit projectile. It's a default node, and it's going to be called melee weapon projectile, which is a really confusing name, but it's probably the best I can do. We're going to want to extend that, and that's pretty much it. And then we'll need to make a bunch of changes to it. That already extends projectile, cool. Alright, so let's create a new scene here and attach that melee weapon projectile script to it. We'll call it melee projectile. Okay. That's really horribly done. And it's going to need an additional type. I might just ignore that. This will be an interesting problem to overcome. Or do we try to overwrite the projectile? Let's have a look at the script that it has. So as far as... I still need to refactor this. The flow of the code is essentially the weapon manager just calls the function set projectile, and it sets the damage, and then it sets off this chain of events, right? So it goes to fire projectile, and that gets a position from the camera, and then it's either going to go to projectile type, hit scan, collision, launch, rigid body projectile, right? So maybe it's worth adding a third option here for projectile type, for just saying like whatever you want. So it would be, where's my enum? Right, there'd be a third one, custom. Let's just maybe save that. Spawnable objects, projectiles to load. It crashed again. Here we go. Godot's been really unstable for me lately. Alrighty. That didn't get saved, did it? Because I was going to save it. At least we've still got the melee weapon, so we'll just create a 3D scene. We'll call it melee. Projectile. We'll attach that script, and I'll quickly save it before I do anything. Controller, spawnable objects, projectiles to load, save. Okay. So, right before that I was saying I probably need a third, and I was going to call it custom, but now that I say that, I think maybe override is probably a clearer term, because we're overriding the flow, right? And so then this would be a match, and it would just say override. And that's not right. It needs to be capital. Actually, I don't... Why did I do that? Override. How did I write that? Yeah, that was it. Just because there's two R's and it's kind of hard to read. Or actually, I suppose the correct typing would be lowercase, and it would be over_ride. I would say. Yeah, we'll do that. And we'll create a new function called override collision. Single S on collision. And it'll pass the same things like camera collision, and the damage. But other than that, it's not going to do anything, right? Override collision. So it's going to take the camera collision, probably put that. What type is the camera collision? Camera collision is not typed. It's got to be an object. It's an array. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And the damage is an integer or a float, actually, I think. Okay. And then I'll just type return. Right, because these don't return anything, right? Hit scan doesn't return anything, it just does damage. It flows right down to hit scan damage and then local decal. But the point of the override function is not that it does anything in this class, but if you do need to do a custom solution like this, then you can just, call this instead. You can set it as an override type, and then you have to override the collision. So that'll work. Yes, we'll go with that. Right, so now we can set this one as override, and we can jump into this. Actually, I just need to copy that. And so far, this is really all we need. We're going to need to add, to make it easy for now, I'm going to add a array cast 3D. I want to basically just copy whatever I'm doing for this, which is a collision. It's a shapecast 3D, which means I need to poll it, which is super annoying, but is that going to work for this? I think it will. It should be okay. Yeah. Change type. Shapecast 3D. It requires a shape. Separation array. We want probably... I use a box. So it just looks like this. And we'll just put that out in front of us in the negative Z direction, which I believe is how the player is orientated. Yes, so that will appear out here. Right, happy days. And that's pretty much it. That doesn't have a signal, but we will need to get access to it. Just call it merely a hitbox. And we'll drag that into the script. Alrighty. Okay, so now that we've override the collision, we don't really need the camera collision because that's what we can just throw that away. The damage is still important, so that's good. Yeah, cool. Right, so let me just have a look at what I did for the melee because I've forgotten. Basically, you just need to get a list of all the things colliding with the shapecast and then just do damage to them. It's pretty straightforward. So here's the flow here, in case you're wondering. So we're going to play the animation, and then if is colliding, we get the collision count, and then we count through all the colliders, and we check if they're obviously a part of the group's target and hit successful, and has the method hit successful, and if they do, we will emit the signal hit successful. And then we do some direction. Alright, because we need to actually give the hit successful function on the enemies a direction to move, because they need to know where the impact is coming from. So we calculate that, and then we emit the target.hit successful, which should produce an X marks the spot, like a hit signifier in the middle of the screen. So that's what we need to do for this. Exactly the same thing. Okay. Alright, I don't want to copy it entirely, but the colliders get collision site, and then we're basically, so this is the part I really need, because the rest just needs to happen. So it's merely hitbox. Oh, it's the same exact name, which is pretty funny. For C in colliders, and then we're gonna, do the damage. Found indent instead. Expected statement for C. Excuse me, sorry, what? That does not need to be indented. Alright, so let's have a look at the projectile and see what kind of functions we've got. Because ultimately these things get, so we've got a hit successful signal, and we do the same thing where we check if the target is in group target and hit successful. So we're doing those things here as well. So var target equals merely hitbox. Did you try to code an external editor? I have tried that, Gonzalo, but it just doesn't work for me. That's all I gotta say. Like, I do use VS Code for other things. Crashed again. So like when I'm doing stuff not for work, because I don't use it for work, but when I'm doing other projects that aren't in Godot, or especially when I'm with my website, with the documentation, I'm using code to do all the markdown for those, and basically anytime I'm not using Godot, I'm going to be using VS Code. Not because I think it's great, it's just because it's there, and it's light compared to other options out there. I don't hate it, but I find myself mostly, like, obviously you can pop this out now, which is great, and just with the way that everything is, I'm used to using it. So it's like, I just keep using it. But especially like when I'm doing things on video, it has to all sort of be on one screen. So like you just end up doing everything you just end up doing everything inside the editor itself rather than using an external one, because it's just easier. Like visually for the people watching. And then what you do, like if you're making a video, for example, you just punch in on like this section here, so that like it gets bigger and clearer, and like that's fine. It works. Okay, so now I need to get colliders, didn't I? Merely hitbox. I'm all over the shop. I've totally forgotten how to code this. It's just been too long. I'm going to go for C and colliders, get target, get collider C. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to use that. In fact, this whole thing can be used. Hit successful.emit, and then we'd get I'm just going to copy the whole thing. Let's just be lazy. Cannot be bothered tonight. Just one of those days. Obviously, it's going to break because I'm pretty sure hit successful is still capitalized here, which is bad, but we'll just get it working. I forgot the first bit, didn't I? The part that I actually needed to steal. Okay, so now it's happy, and the current weapon slot is not declared in the scope. Yeah, well that's okay. We don't need that because we have damage here. It's crashed again. Oh, it's so frustrating. I need to check if I'm using Xorg or Wayland, and I think that might have something to do with it. Definitely relates to when I'm streaming. I definitely have a lot more problems. Hey RABA, how are ya? RA and BA? Randba? I just lost all of that. Well, we're not having a good day with the editor today. Okay, So let's just yoink this entire section of code. Paste it in there and hit save before the thing crashes again. Okay, change this to uppercase, hit successful. I know that's wrong, it's just how it is right now. And this needs to be replaced here. Realistically, target.hit successful? Like, is that override collision? Let me just have a look at what it does, like the actual parent class does. So if I'm doing hit scan collision, I do the hit scan, right? And then I check, obviously I check for a hit, and then I call hit scan damage. I check if it's in group. I emit the hit successful signal, and I call the hit successful function on the thing that I hit, and that's it. And I delete myself. So that's the next thing that I need to do, is actually delete this. So that's really it. And I guess I'm a little bit concerned about this just working properly. I don't know, like it feels too easy. But we'll roll with it for now and see what breaks, and then we'll go from there. That's how I like to roll. So let's go back to the melee weapon and add that new projectile. Player controller, spawnable objects, projectiles to load, melee projectile. As crazy as that sounds, I guess like the idea of what a projectile is in this project is like the thing you load from the weapon to do damage. And so it could probably have a more generic name if the function is broader, since it was working with weapons and now we're expanding it to work with melee weapons. Maybe projectile to load is not the best variable name. I'll have to think about it. Okay, so it's not crashing. The ammo is counting down, which is pretty funny. And the hits aren't registering. So that's definitely going to have everything to do with the collision layers on that box. It's always the collision layers. I forget them every time. So let me have a look to jog my memory, because I've forgotten, at what the rigid body projectile layers are. And from there, I'd be able to figure out exactly how to get it working. Alrighty. Projectiles to load. Rigid body projectile. Oh, and it loads up another scene. So I'm going to load that. And I'll look at the collision. Oh man, it's very detailed. So it sits on the rigid body projectiles. I can't see why mine can't sit there too. And we mask 1, 6, and 3. So it's objects, enemies, and the world. We don't really need to mask the world, but we will anyway, I think. So 5, 1, 6, 3. We do the same thing with this. Collide with bodies, collide with areas. Well, bodies is okay for now, but I guess if you were doing this for your own project, you might need to something like that. We don't need to collide with, yeah, we do. World, enemies, objects, and rigid body projectiles. It's quick code directly in Godot, but I miss a lot of features and the tab system kills me. Yeah, the tab system can be a little bit frustrating sometimes. I'm so used to it, and it's probably better because I don't like code for a job. I'm not like using an editor every day, so I'm not used to things. I'm like my main coding is done in Godot, so like I'm actually more familiar with it than anything else, I would say. Okay, so 163. Yeah, let's try that. Let's run over to these. Still nothing. Okay. Let's turn on visible collision shapes. It's going to be kind of confusing, so I might need to hide some because there's the melee box. So the melee hitbox that you can see here should really be registering a hit. There it goes. Okay, so it did spawn and it is colliding with things. It's just not registering a hit. and it's not deleting itself either. So this has got something to do with me inheriting it. I'm not calling return, so I need to call return dot, I think it's dot super return, I think is the right syntax here. Oh my god. Dot super return, is that right? That's changed, right? Is it just super return now? Super dot return. I could check something. Expected dot or that after return. Anyone got that from me in the chat? I'm gonna have to go check what it's supposed to be because I've forgotten. Oh, I know because I use it in the FPS Pro and the Plague State Machine. Where is it? Oh, I've got this somewhere. What motion? In air? Return super dot. Maybe if I just don't put a return number. I do have to put something. Pass? It returns a void. Realistically. Okay. That should fix the problem. Still doesn't delete itself. Okay, dunno, print, target. Make sure it's colliding. It's also not deleting itself, which is a problem. What do we need to know? The range is very short, that's okay, we're not using it. I feel like it should pretty much just work. What am I missing here? It's not even making it to foresee in colliders, right? So, because that never printed. It is spawning, but it's not doing anything after that. So how do we know this function is even getting called? Okay, we are making it to the function. Zero. Still zero. So they're not colliding. That's still the issue. Is it perhaps the mask? Let's go back to the melee projectile collision mask. We've got 1, 6, and 3. And we're colliding with bodies, which is how it should be. Its position is a little bit off. I noticed that. But other than that, it should work. Enabled. It excludes parent. That's fine. Interesting. And realistically, I should be calling Q3 no matter what. I want to change that because it's kind of annoying me. But it's not colliding with anything. Is it because I'm just like, do I have to call update? I think there's a function. So if I search help shape, let's go over to my other scene. Shapecast 2D, thank you. If I call shapecast, force shapecast update updates the collision information for the shape immediately without waiting for the next physics process. I think I probably need to call this because I am not calling this in the process function. So I'll go melee hitbox.force shapecast update, and then we'll try doing all this stuff. It's not even, is it even spawning? It's not spawning. Let's put that back in there. It's just getting deleted before it does anything. Oh, well, I think the answer is it's not working. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Okay, no, we made it through. Okay, awesome. Next error. So we can put that back out there. I'm pressing F for melee strike instead of like the left click button. Okay, Mr. Forgettable. Bro, I am so confused about save files. I just want to save the high score of my first game Pong, but making save files is so hard. There is little to no tutorials out there. So the best way to save a file realistically is to probably use JSON for something like that. It's simple. You don't need much, right? It's Pong, right? So a JSON would work. If you want to get a little risky, you could use a resource, but let's not do that. I'm guessing I have no idea how to save variables and loading it in another scene. Oh, well, you need a singleton, right? Do you know how to make a singleton? That's probably the easiest way to do it. Create something top level. So what I would do is I would create, an auto load. That's exactly it. So I'd create a node. Oh wait, I didn't want to create that in the scene. So what I would do is I would create new scene, and I would just call it. I would just make it node, and it would just be like score. I guess we call it score. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe game state or something like that. Depends what you want to keep in there. You like attach a script, score.gd. You have like a variable called score, obviously. Would be an int. It starts off as 0, and then you create a function. Delete these. We don't need them. We might need ready, to be honest. So what you could do is you create a ready function, but you also want to create a function called like update score. And it takes a score, which is an int, and it returns a void probably. Yeah, autoload is probably the easiest way to go. Sometimes there's better ways to do it, but like realistically, like that's fine. Score plus equals score, right? And that'll just incrementally count, and you can just call that whenever you want. And then if you wanted to save it, well, that's a little bit more difficult. Off the top of my head, I probably can't show you, but I can, like, it's really not that complicated. Let me just pull up a project that I've got, and I can show you the code. It's probably the easiest way to do it, because it'd be faster than me trying to remember. Player controller. Actually, we just quit to project list. Save and close, that's fine. Save and close. FOV slider. So this is a project that I made for like an FOV slider that I made, a tutorial that I made like a couple months ago. It kind of bombed a little bit because I made a mistake with some of the code, and I had to like cut it out of the video and change its angle. But what we have here is the building blocks for what we need, and I just need to find the script. Global settings resource, global settings menu. So settings for H slider, game menu, settings singleton, preload the resource. So the resource does everything. Give me a moment. Here it is. Okay, so you need to save the score in the user space. So that's basically the first thing you want to do. You want to give it a name. It's just going to be a JSON. Like this one here is called global settings.json. I'm saving all this information in a resource, and then like when I load the JSON, I read it back into the resource. Just easier for like more data. But if it's just one integer, that's fine. In fact, it's mostly just user preference. I like to use resources because they're easy to update. They're nicer to work with than just like having all this data here. Okay, so the thing that we want to do is make a JSON file, right? So how do you make a JSON file? You need to go json.stringify global settings pack dictionary, right? So if you were doing this in the other project, let's see if we can open it up. What's the time? Okay, we got time. Let me just take a screenshot. Oh, the VODs are available. You're all right. Or I could put it in a paste bin or something. Make JSON, open JSON, right? So, oh, fuck, it crashed. Sorry about that. So those are the two core files, basically. So you can see that I'm calling function save settings, make JSON, and I'm calling load settings, which is open JSON. So when you make a JSON file, json.stringify, you pass in your information. For me, it's global settings.pack dictionary. And then you save the file. File equals file access.open, save file plus the name. So this is basically just a string and a string that creates the path plus the name of the file. And then you just go write files.store string new JSON. And that's it. Like you don't even have to close it, I think. File open. Creates a new file access and objects the file for writing and reading depending on the flags. Returns null. If opening file failed, you can use get open error. Yeah, I think it's fine to just call open and not call close. Don't hold me to it though. Your mileage may vary. And then when you're opening it, file.open. And the same thing, file pass, but you're reading it instead of writing it. And then you get the text and you have to pass it as a string. And so I've got a function called unpack dictionary. So just depending on how much information you're storing in this JSON, you might need to do a bit more work. So for me, it's relatively straightforward, right? Unpack dictionary, takes a dictionary, returns a void, and I loop through the keys. So for I set, and so this is where like the variable names and then the value, right? And that's it. And then you have your information back in your game. So basically you save it, and then when you load it, you have to read it back in. So it's about 3 functions, but obviously if it's a more complicated project, there are other ways of doing it that you can sort of, you can take. There's like a entire, in the docs as well, like everybody should read the docs. I think the documentation for Godot is so good. And for me, like tutorials will only get you so far. They're great. And I use them a lot too, don't get me wrong. But if you ever need to know anything, the docs are there. So if you just go save, type that in, saving games. And they've got an entire page about how the best way to do that. That's what I'm here for, Mr. Forgettable. So save games can be complicated, obviously, for example, and so they're talking about using groups in order to identify the nodes that you want to save, so you can like save the state of the node. And then they're also talking about using the dictionary and storing it as a JSON. So you serialize the data, right? So it's tough work. If you're doing something detailed, I dread it. I haven't made a like complicated game before, so like this, it's nice. It's easy to read, but like, you know. But yeah, for sure. Like, anytime you need to know something, the Godot docs are there. Obviously, if you're just starting out, it's a little bit harder because you don't know what question to ask. But at the end of the day, it's a good place to look if you can't find anything. And eventually, as you progress and your skills get better as someone who uses Godot, you'll start here first. So, the Godot docs are amazing. In fact, I would say, like, out of most things that I've used, the Godot docs are the best docs that I've had to use. Period. Actually, the NetSuite ones are pretty good, but yeah, Godot docs are really nice to work with. Has anyone tried to use the Excel docs from Microsoft? I've had to reference them a number of times for my job. It's a nightmare. Like the Visual Basic reference on Microsoft's website is horrible. Yeah, there's quite a few. I tried to make one, but I did it wrong. So I took it down. It happens. Okay, so we're getting back to what we were doing, making melee weapons, and we were progressing. That's right, like we were getting so close. Save and quit. So just delete this because I forget this is actually like a project that I let people download, so we don't want to delete project settings. I didn't set it up as online, did I? Yeah, cool. Okay. Don't save. Alright, so we had an error. Let's just reproduce that error. Let's write these. Book. Okay, so invalid get index global transform on null instant. So the target is null. Interesting. Global transform. Or is it owner? It's probably owner, right? Like it's referring to the owner. Because the target must be an object, yeah. Yeah, the target is an object. So this is an interesting one to overcome. It could probably just be itself, right? We don't, like, it's fine for, because what this is doing is basically, excuse me, I hit the microphone. What this is doing is basically getting the direction of the player and the object and just calculating a vector so that we can simulate physics for the object, whatever it is. If it's a rigid body like I'm striking here, or if it's a target, you're simulating, you're giving it the direction just in case you need to simulate the physics. So for a lot of things, you'll need to do that. Obviously, if you're using rigid bodies, you get that for free. But if we're doing it through hit scanning, or in this case, we're using a shapecast, we need to simulate it. So I think if I just call, because this is, what does this extend? It extends no 3D, so it does exist in 3D space. So that's fine. We probably just get global transform.origin. Right? Owner should have worked. I haven't set the owner. I could maybe try that as well if this doesn't look good. Okay. How good is that? And so now we have a striking. The ammo counter is going down. I don't know if I want to address that. I mean, I'm going to have to actually. So now we have like, we have a legit, and the funny thing is now so maybe I'm going to remove that. The actual melee strike doesn't work as good. Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. That's good enough, I think, for what this is, for what this project is intending to be. Easy. Although it is probably a bit too generous. Like you're not even hitting those two, but whatever. It's an example project. It doesn't need to be that complicated. And this, I think needs to sit. Oh, that's an interesting error. I can't switch weapons. Okay, let's have a look at that. What's the time? We're good. Okay, so happy with that. We can remove this print. So that's fine. Let's look at why I can't change weapons. And among other things as well, that check that I wrote a couple of minutes ago, like half an hour ago for the shoot, but we're still updating the ammo, which I don't like. I'd like that to be not something that we do. So if, okay, yeah, because, okay, so if not animation, so here's where we reduce the ammo. I might need to increase, like add additional checks here. And also the other thing, I've sort of done this now and I haven't checked to see if regular weapons, so maybe okay, first bug first. First bug first, we need to find out why we can't change weapons. So let's try and figure that out. It's gonna have obviously something to do with the melee weapon. We have put the drop animation, that should be in the change animation. So now that should work. Yep, okay, great. So now let's see what happens when I run out of ammo, because I've changed that check and I never bothered to check if it prevents us. So it seems like this is okay. It just goes into the reload. Yeah, so that still works as expected, which is great. Even though you're confident, you should still check these things, because I often don't. Okay. All right, now the ammo. So we're reducing the ammo, and I guess I'm just gonna have to go if we require reload, like maybe I should change that variable name to has ammo, because then this check makes more sense, right? I think I'm gonna do that while I'm here. Does not have ammo. And then back here, I'm going to need to change that to has ammo. Okay, so that makes more sense now for when that gets checked. I wonder if there's anything else that I need to probably do. Spread's okay, because if it doesn't exist, it just does nothing, which is what this is checking here. So it says if there's weapon spray, obviously process that, but if there isn't, just don't, and we haven't given it any, so that's not going to affect it. Reload just won't run because the animation doesn't exist. I think that's fine. So have I addressed everything then? There were some other problems, right? Or is that it? Are we good? Like, we can shoot, we can pick up weapons, we can switch back to our melee weapon. Does the ammo doesn't decrease now, so it's not going to mess with people's UIs if they make them. My UI is obviously very basic, so now if we increase the damage of this thing where these boxes go flying, because the way I set it up is if you increase the damage of these weapons, it creates like a bigger impact on these rigid bodies that I've stacked up over here. So let's have some fun and just make the damage like 100. Let's see what happens. I love it. Boom. Oof. Physics is fun. Bro, that one went flying. Actually, I want to do that again, and I just want to try physical collision shapes, because obviously for the clip, we don't want to have collision shapes. So I'll stand behind this. Should I crouch down as well? Boom. It never gets old. We send them flying. That's so good. Very satisfying. Okay, now let's make this a sensible number, like 2. Right? Makes sense. Okay, so, I mean, I didn't have to make too many changes to make a melee weapon possible. Realistically, that was like a couple of bits of code. I think the biggest issue was having to create a custom projectile, which is sort of like, I mean, I've got a little bit of documentation on it, but not that much. So like, not many people would probably, I don't think many people would find this easy, or even know that you could do it. So now there's an example for it. In fact, I don't know, should I check the docs? I think it's docs.chefgames.com. Or not. Not docs. That makes more sense. Okay, projectiles. What do I say about them in the docs? A projectile is not a physical projectile. It can be a rigid body if you want it to be, but what it actually is an object that's loaded when you press the fire button and is responsible for raycasting and detecting a hit. It can either be a hit scan weapon or it can be a rigid body projectile. Okay, so I probably just need to update this if someone's reading this to say that you can also override it and have it do whatever you want now. A projectile to load should be placed on every weapon that exists. I learned that the hard way. It is a required object for the manager to function. Okay, that makes sense. And so now here's like an example of what it looks like. Focused on that. So I just explained the flow of the code, how to create a projectile. So now I've got an example of creating all the different options that you can go through. Okay, so I'll need to add information here about what I've changed. Customization, I'm basically saying that you can create a child class and override it. How are you solving the interaction without interfaces? Yeah, I am just using has method. Just for this template, I just didn't want to go to the effort, right? Plus, like, realistically, I do use interfaces for a lot of things, but I don't use it for that. I'm trying to think. I know there's a couple of really good videos that explain exactly how, like, what people think would be the best way to do it, but I've never actually watched them. I've just, I know that a lot of people think you should do it that way, and I haven't experimented it with it yet, because for this one, I was just like, yep, is in group target, has method hit successful, call that function, right? And to me, like, it's a very general function. The thing is, I guess, because if I was going to do it in a way that would... See, it's like, you still need a lot of information. So if it was an interface, then what exactly would that look like? Because it still needs to know the damage, it needs to know the direction and the position. So I need to pass that information anyway. So what does that look like then? If it's an interface, what do I pass into it? It's an object, right? Because that's what we do with interfaces. We give it an object instead. Is that right? Am I making sense? Do I need to watch that video? There's a guy on YouTube that made like a really snarky video about it. I don't know if you guys have watched it. Have you guys? I know it exists. I've seen him post in the Godot subreddit, and people get really mad at him because he uses very like inflammatory language. Godot interface. He basically like is saying like, oh, you're doing it wrong, and it's like, yeah, it's not a big deal. I think it's maybe this guy. Should probably do this not with that browser. I'll do it with this browser. Godot. I'm trying to find. I might need to go to YouTube. User interface, not user interface.
In Paris, 2 tips of a mustache.
Godot interface. I'll know it when I see it. While free. Yeah, this guy here. He makes some really like angry videos.
They said wizardry only appears in fairy tales, but when you arrange some mystical-looking words in a
as the number of interacting objects goes up, managing the connection.
Hang on, let me just work on the levels here. Oh, desktop audio is turned up really loud. I didn't know that. Have I been like low compared to the mix? I might have stuffed that up. Ugh, so annoying.
Turns into a terrible mess. It seems inevitable to sacrifice reusability and modular design. However, I'm here to save you, so let's consider a simple scenario. Imagine we have a lot of different types of killer zones and killable objects. You probably want each killable...
He's basically talking about the exact thing that we're talking about now. And he sets out a way that he thinks people should do it.
To have its own unique dying mechanism. This forces you to keep the dying mechanism inside the killable object.
Oops. My bad. Watched a few videos. It's like a worker. I think it really, well, to me, in my opinion, it's like, well, what's your project doing? Like, what works for you? Understand how to do both and that you have options, right? And then pick the one that works for your project, and don't worry about it too much. Like, unless you're showing that code to other people, then it doesn't really matter, right? Like, if you're just making a game, if it works, it works.
Itself. The killers must have no clue what is going to happen to the killable object touching them. Otherwise, the killer code turns into a terrible mess of if jungle.
Yeah, see, and like, I would agree with him on this. It's really, like this you should avoid, right? So this is like, if I put on my code here, so I'm not doing exactly what he sets out here, but I'm not, if you look at this code, I don't know if I can find it. Target, I think it's, hit, no, enemy. What is it? Right? So like, oh my God. Totally ruined the flow of the content, bro. Right? So if I look at what hit successful does, it takes 3 properties, and then on the rigid body, I'm telling the rigid body what to do, right? So I'm not doing this. This is probably, I would agree, not the best way to go about it. But like I said before, if it works, it works. Just know that if you wanted to make a change to the things that you're doing, it's going to be more difficult.
Full of dependencies. This makes you think of Godot signals. However, any attempt to connect the killable functions to killer signals quickly turns into a spaghetti mess of...
I don't think it's that difficult, honestly. It just depends on the size of the project. It's whatever.
Function signal interactions.
And as you guys know, I'm actually like a big fan of signals. Like, I've made videos on it. I use them a lot. And other people don't like them, and that's fine. It's not a big deal.
The solution everybody seems to be happy about is to use the has method function inside the killer object. At first, it doesn't seem to be a great sacrifice. Simply connect the killer body inter signal to its own function and see if the body has a method named, for example, hit. If it has, it must react to the killer, call the function, and we are done. Now,
So this is what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure he still says there's problems with that. And to be fair, he's true. It's right. Like, there is problems with that.
inside each killable object, you can implement a different mechanism in its hit function. Everything seems okay, but actually, it's not okay. Let's say some of the
It's so funny. I love it.
killable objects are immune to some killer zones and show a different reaction. For example, the flaming dragon would be immune to the fire zone and would laugh when it touches it, but it dies if it touches the water zone. Now the question is, how on earth can a single function inside the dragon object laugh and die at the same time?
So my solution to this is really bad. Where's the project? So yeah, right? I have that in this project. Let me turn my mic back on so I can hear myself. So what I do here, I've got a rigid body here that reacts, and I've got targets that react. So these are static bodies, and that's a rigid body, right? And they both have the same function, hit successful, and they both will react to the function in the projectile, right? So how does that work? Well, they're not childs of the same class, but they do both have the hit successful function, and they both take. So it's essentially like this function, I just need to make sure that it's in the target, and then I do whatever I want with it. And this is just an example project, and the focus has never really been on the objects you're shooting. Although it's probably worth me thinking of a way to do it a little bit better, because right now I'm basically saying if you were to use this, you probably need to look at like figuring out a better way to do it, or you just need to make sure that you're calling a function called hit successful on the object. Like, it doesn't care about the type. The projectile doesn't care about the type. It just cares that it's in the group target and it has the function hit successful. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not great. I agree. It's not a big deal though. Depends on what you're doing.
And what are you gonna call it? Hit?
Yeah.
The terrible solution is to get a reference to the zone and check if it's water or fire. Now the hit function does two completely separate tasks.
Single responsibility principle broken.
The dragon also depends on the type of the zone, and the zone depends on the name of the dragon function. What a mess! Step by step, a lazy implementation of a good idea turns your project into an unmanageable mess. But you don't worry, because you are subscribed to my channel. And here is a neat solution. Consider your TV set. It has a remote control and a display. The remote control is a completely
I guess this is where he's going to give his new solution. He's got a couple of videos on it. I think he made
different
a
device
thing
from the
it.
display, but they work together. They are one module. We need to implement a similar system to solve the killer's killables dilemma. I separate the killer module into two objects, sender and receiver. The sender is the one responsible for emitting the signal. The signal is still connected to a function inside the sender. However, it does not call a function of the body touching it. Instead, it calls the receiver. The sender is the one the killer's killables dilemma.
Dude, that's so much information to take in. Hang on a second. Okay, yeah.
Module. We need to implement a similar system to solve the killer's killables dilemma. I separate the killer module into two objects, sender and receiver. The sender is the one responsible for emitting the signal. The signal is still connected to a function inside the sender. However, it does not call a function of the body touching it. Instead, it calls the function of its receiver. Adding the receiver as a child of the killable object, I can check if the body touching the sender has the receiver as a child. However, I don't want to hard-code name dependencies, so I let the sender get the name of its receiver as an exported variable. This way I can reuse the same system without touching any code. The receiver, on the other hand, has an exported variable which holds the name of the function of the killable object. To check if the system works, I print some messages. Let's set up the names in the editor and run the game.
There's another guy that makes a more like in detailed video, but basically you have a bunch of nodes and you just hook them up and
It works perfectly. Back to the dragon.
he covers this a bit quickly about like his solution. It's not that in detail, but I get what he's trying to say. You add an object to the thing, But like, does that really solve the issue? Is it just like, I guess it does in a way, because you create an object that you can work on specifically for anything, right? Then you could almost use it like a resource where you've got all these different variables that it might depend on, but they're not a part of the actual enemy object itself, right? So you attach that and it just like does whatever it does depending on how you're designing that enemy, rather than needing to like create all of that within the enemy script, and it's not reusable. And like he said, there's dependencies. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Problem. Let's add a water zone, a fire zone, and a new killable object called Dragon.
Dragon, rigid body, collision shape, mesh instance, box shape. Yeah, right, okay.
The dragon needs two functions, laugh and die. The player already has a die function. Let's make it react to the new zone types. Simply add two receiver nodes and name them appropriately. Don't forget to tell the
So yeah, you've got Death Zone water receiver, and it does all the different things. And then it's, yeah, okay, fair enough. This wouldn't be like, I guess it's not really like targeted at beginners, because you need to know a fair bit about Godot before this would actually work for you. Like he's going very quick. So even for me, I'm like, I kind of understand what you're trying to say. Like I understand the concept, but like exactly what he's doing in this script, it's like way too quickly. But that's not really like a problem with the code or the project itself. It's just probably the editing. You know, that's fine otherwise.
the receivers to call the player's die function. Do the same thing for the dragon. Make the water receiver call the die function and the fire receiver call the laugh one. Let's run the game. And it is working perfectly.
But like, it's still, I'm sort of of the opinion that this is like, it's very, like if you're making a big game, yeah, this is great. You should probably do this. But like for a small game, yeah, don't worry about it. It's a lot of work.
Can expand the idea and apply
Like game jam level game, don't even worry about it.
to totally different scenarios. Every signal emitter can use receivers.
So the concept is pretty similar to what I'm doing in this project for the projectiles and the spray. So instead of having to design that within the weapon, it's just something that you link in the resource, and it gets loaded when you trigger a shoot function. And so like when you shoot, it doesn't matter what is on this. Like I could load a projectile from my melee weapon, right? Like I can just change that. If I look for the rigid body projectile, if I just drag this in, nothing else matters. For me, the design is so complicated to maintain for the project to have and have a reusable code. Yeah, I think that just comes with experience. It's still something that even me, after like 3 years of working with Godot, is something that I struggle with, right? I don't write code professionally. So for me, everything that I've learned has been through making games. And so I don't have that like professional background. Like that person, I would suspect, I don't know if it's true, like maybe I'm speaking out of time. It sounds to me like they have like a formal education in this kind of thing. I don't. So like, it's not something that I would immediately think that I need to do. And for other people as well, if you're just learning to code and make games, this is a new concept and probably foreign. I don't know. Okay, so I was just showing like, this is essentially the same thing. I've got a projectile to load, and now it shoots, well, it crashed, but that's okay. It shoots a projectile. Invalid operand nil, and for it, global translate load decal. Interesting. I wonder if that is present in everything, or if that was specifically to do with the actual melee weapon that I just loaded up. Did I find another bug? So let's go and just undo that. I think it's like, it's important to probably learn eventually, but I wouldn't stress too much about it. It depends what you're trying to make. If you're trying to make like a big RPG or like a a big game, then yeah, with a lot of different enemies that have types and all these different things like the water and the fire, like he was saying in the video, it's going to be important. If you're like in my case, we got damage. It's okay. But I think, to be honest, for this particular template is something I might want to consider. Maybe we can look at that next, because everything else is so, it's like that already, where you can just not have these things. Although this is a dependency, it does need to be there, but it can be anything you want, right? It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's back to normal. Now I'm curious. This is the projectile weapon. Is it going to crash? No. So it was something to do with that other thing. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, that pretty much covers it. I think if you wanted to learn probably more, his videos are good. Are you working on a project that you want to publish or sell, or doing a hobby project? Hawkeye, at the moment, I'm working on something called the Godot FPS template. So if you go to Godot engine/asset library, it doesn't have it in history. And under templates, I updated it the other day, so it should be pretty close to the top. I make a first-person shooter template that people can download and test out. And it's basically meant to be a learning tool. I have a full tutorial series on YouTube as well. So that's what we've been working on today. Rucky, by the way, what is new in Godot 3? I have a video coming out. It's going to be a stream highlight though. I don't know about stream highlights, if it's worth me making them like I do this and then I cut it down into like smaller bits of content. But basically the big takeaway is there's a really cool audio system coming that's going to make things really fun. That's the thing I'm most excited about. Where is it? Godot. Go back. Where is it? Audio. To me, Godot audio stream, interactive, synchronized, and playlist are probably the coolest things that are coming in Godot 4.3. I was testing them out on Saturday. I'll probably put out a video on it at some point. I've got to edit them. Because I think stream synchronized has such potential. Like we were talking about Ultra Kill, you know, the game Ultra Kill. What would be the best and quickest resource for me to learn game dev in Godot? I mean, Bracky's just put out a tutorial, right? Or if you don't want to use Bracky's, because I don't know if people say it's good. I haven't watched it myself. I have no need to watch it. But he just put out a brand new video. So it's the most up to date. And I mean, the guy's the GOAT, right? He's the guy. 1.79 million subscribers. You can't get better than that. If you don't want to use him, I learned how to use Godot from Heartbeast. So I already knew a little bit. Oh, you already watched it? Okay. How did you go with it? Did you find it good? Have you ever coded before? I guess is the next question. I haven't done any multiplayer. Small projects are flexible. GD Quest is really good. I think he does like mostly short form kind of stuff, right? Like it's just little snippets. Like it's good if you want to learn like a small little concept. You bought the Heartbeast course. Well, I think that's a good idea. You haven't coded before. Yeah, it's tough. I think it took me a really long time. That's all I'll say. I didn't learn coding at school. And I wanted to learn how to code after I finished my master's, and I was stumbling around trying different things, but eventually I realized that like something that I always wanted to try was to make games. And one of the things that I wanted to do was make games. So I went and bought a course. You don't have to buy a course, right? Like everything's on YouTube, but I bought a course from Game Dev TV. They're really good. Depending on where you are, they can be expensive, they can be cheap. just I wouldn't pay full price for them, right? So for me, US 14 is very reasonable. I'm in Australia, so that's like $20, $30 depending. But if I wouldn't recommend paying full price. 195 is not reasonable. You can get all this information for free. But I paid for a course, and I used that, and it was something that I was able to use to figure out how to code. Godot Engineers, I think he has like a good starting course, right? I actually have watched his content because I was curious about him, because I saw him spring up quickly, right? Like he came out of nowhere. He's got more subs than me. He's made less videos. So like he's a good one to check out. But I personally, like, I mean, looks like he's got an actual, what do you call it? Like a tutorial series now, which is good. He's even got a save and load. We were just talking about that earlier. But for me, Heartbeast, he's a professional teacher, I think, right? Like he does this for a job. He's very good. And I think he's got some series out. Like it's just there, and he'll teach you space shooting using components. Components are really powerful things that you should know when you're making games. Who else did I use? There's another guy that I used, and he was really good too. I got a shout out to the originals, right? I think it's Born CG. Spelled it wrong. 60 Days of Blender. I mean, if you make something, if you know how to use Blender and you're going to make a tutorial series, I think it's a great idea. You know, you never know. Could turn into a career. But yeah, Born CG is really good as well. So he still makes, I mean, these aren't that old, right? Let's get started. It's a 3D platformer, right? Godot 4. So that's great. Oh, you already do? Awesome. I will check out your channel. But yeah, so I think Born CG is also really good. I liked his teaching style a lot. So it's all about, like, I think probably finding someone that is doing things in the same style as you. Like, not everyone teaches and learns the same way. So it's just like going around finding someone. Wouldn't recommend any of my videos. They're a little bit like, you should know how to code if you're going to watch my videos. And they're not that great anyway, let's be honest. Nah, they're all right. But compared to these guys are a league above, right? Especially if you're new. If you're new, they're the best. What else is? That is it. I have got to work tomorrow, so I'm going to jump off. Alrighty. Let me go back to this. I turned off the music, right? So I'm going to bring this back. And as always on these, we're going to play it out with an original. With Fear. This might be the last song that I ever wrote in 2018, maybe? It's a little bit like rocky. I do program, so of course the code is not too complex, but you explain topics really well. Yeah, I think if I had to say, like, my biggest advantage is that I never was taught formally, and like, so I explain things in a much more basic way. That's about all I would say. But, you know, there wasn't a lot of content for this kind of stuff on Godot at the time. So that's the only reason I decided to do it. Because it's like, I'm learning how to do this stuff. I'm figuring it out. I should just make videos because nothing else exists. But, so thank you for that, Snapper. Other than that, guys, I'm out of here. I'm Isaac. I'm Chef Games. Oh, that's starting. We need to go to ending. jump on the Patreon. Jump on the Patreon. Well, you should join the Patreon if you want to support me, but it's not super important. If you don't have the money, don't worry about it. I always appreciate it though. But what I meant to say is that you guys should jump on the Discord. And I've got the link here. So let me grab it. Dashboard. Paste. So jump on the Discord if you want to chat. I'm always around. If you guys want to ask questions, I just linked it. When I learn Godot, I want to make 100 days of Godot course. Yeah, that's a good idea. You should do that. Making videos is hard. Live streaming is way easier. Alrighty, guys. Catch ya.